It's necessary and a proud teacher of the Berkeley Public Schools at Martin Luther King Middle School. And I want to thank everyone for coming, because together we can beat this. Together we can beat this witch hunt. And we can come out of this not just getting me back in my class and beating this witch hunt against me, but we can come out of this with stronger and more rights. For teachers in Berkeley, more rights for students and their families in Berkeley, and really set a model for the whole nation. And that is our goal, is to build this movement. And they messed with the wrong person when they went after me. So I'm going to turn it over to introduce. Thank you. I want to introduce Shanta Driver, who is my attorney and has been my friend for 25 years.
Since we were in daycare together.
That's right. And when I was a young radical, cutting my teeth on militant action and politics, and who's also the national chair of my civil rights organization, BAM. And she's going to go through and really put the BUSD's witch hunt against me on trial. We're going to flip the tables on them and walk you through some of this material that we've given you, because I think you'll find it helpful both to understand the significance of this case, but also how we can use this to strengthen the whole movement here in Berkeley as well. So I want to turn it over to Shanta. Thank you.
Thank you. I want to start with Sacramento and what transpired there when the Nazis chose to rally in Sacramento. And I want to start there because I think that rally is something that has to have a really sobering effect on all of us. In the time that I've been somebody who's been involved in revolutionary and radical politics, there have been innumerable little rallies of Nazi organizations, and they've been groups, and I've been very happy to be a part of those groups that have rallied to try to shut down those rallies. And we've done it on the basis of saying that if there were rallies of murderers or rapists, obviously nobody would countenance that. But here are people who are not just talking about attacking people, they are actually doing it. And most of those rallies in the past, they've come with organizations that got permits, they've had a lot of police protection, and they've been out, the Nazis have been there largely to have a symbolic impact on people that they are hoping to recruit and to be above ground some. What's happened in the last few months in California is completely different from that. There was a Nazi gathering in Anaheim, and that gathering in February of this year was a gathering in which Nazis showed up in a park with the intention of stabbing people. They did not ask for police protection for the rally because they weren't about talking. They were about acting. They were about showing that they could be a real pole of attraction in action, not just in words, for young racists to come out and join. And during the course of that rally, there were several young Latino and Black people who challenged the Nazis' right to be there, who were stabbed. One was stabbed almost fatally. They ended up, many of them, in the hospital. Not a single Nazi from that encounter was charged with anything. The young man who almost lost his life was charged with aggravated assault because he didn't stab anybody, he didn't do anything to the Nazis other than try to clear them away and grab their Nazi flags, and for that he ended up A, almost dead, and B, charged very, very high. And I think part of the reason for that is that by February it was clear to a lot of racists in America who were following the Trump campaign, that racism, xenophobia, that anti-immigrant bigotry was being given a voice, that it was something that you could express publicly and proudly. And Donald Trump, if you look at any of the videos of any of his speeches, which I assure you is not worth your time, but if you do, he talks about the fact that he's building a movement. That is a central theme of his. I've been to a couple of his political rallies, and unlike other presidential rallies, if you go to one of his rallies, you don't get a bumper sticker. You don't get a t-shirt. You don't get paper and instructions of how to register people to vote. This isn't an electoral campaign. Yes, it is that, but overwhelmingly it's a campaign to build a racist movement in America, to carry out a racist program of deportations on a scale that is completely unheard of, and through methods that have to include violent gathering up of people. And if Donald Trump becomes president, then he will, like Hitler did, starting in 1933, have access to the FBI, to ICE, to the Army, to every single state organization that can help carry out this policy. And in 1933, when Hitler became Chancellor of Germany, and the years before that, there was so much talk of ignoring the Nazis, and the criticisms. If you were to read German newspapers from that period of time, you would think that they were talking about Donald Trump, because the criticisms of Hitler are personal. He's a crazy person. You know, he's a megalomaniac. He's all of these different things, but there was no real criticism of his politics. And at that point in Germany, this was the nation that was known as the place where the workers' movement was born, where socialist and communist parties were very, very strong and had a strong history, where more people were organized into labor unions than in any other place in the world. It was seen as a home for democracy and a home for workers' rights and minority rights and progressive politics. And yet it was possible in a moment of despair, of a situation in which the economy and people's living standards were continuing to go down, in which, like this country now, the rich were getting richer and everybody else was getting poorer, and the gap between rich and poor was growing, and there wasn't much end in sight, people felt, to that. And it was in that desperation that somebody who said that he had the solution. And the solution was to get rid of all non-Germans from Germany, that sounded like a possible thing that could work. Now, I don't think anybody who is a Trump supporter really, I think if they thought about what it is that Trump is saying, they would have to admit to themselves that what they're signing on to is a policy very much like Hitler's. And believe me, I don't say this lightly. And it takes a lot, because I'm not one of those people who calls everybody a fascist. You know, I didn't call Ronald Reagan or Nixon or any of those people fascists. It's not a characterization I use lightly, because it has real significance and importance. But that's those people who support Trump. I'm sorry, I'm jumping around, but I'll make my point this way. There was a debate a couple of days ago that people might have seen of Donald Trump and Hillary Clinton. And every single commentator, including all of the people who are Republican commentators, said that Trump did terribly. The little fascist groups on their website say Trump was atrocious. And yet and still, it didn't shake up any of his base of support. because it's not rational in that way. There's a kind of a hysteria that is behind Trump, and to tie it back to the Nazi rally in Anaheim in February, and then this in June, the Nazi rally in Sacramento. Again, the people who came out in Sacramento, one of the misimpressions that's given is that they had a permit to rally. They didn't want a permit to rally. They did not have a permit to rally. They did not want a permit to rally because they came there as they had previously to stab people, to attack people, to beat people, and they were going to carry out that program because from their and if there were on that day, if no protesters had shown up, they would have found somebody to attack, somebody to stab in the streets of Sacramento. They came with a purpose. They came with a mindset that now is their chance to be able to recruit frustrated youth. And if Donald Trump succeeds in becoming president, they're going to be, the Nazis feel and the fascists feel a lot of disenchantment because he'll fail to carry out what a lot of the people who he's voting for want him to do. And in that context, the Nazis see a way for them to grow enormously. So it's a very different moment in history. And there's been no time in my life that I haven't been for opposing the Nazis. And I haven't been for doing that directly. And, and through whatever confrontation would get them off of the steps of the Capitol, would get them back in their bus, would have them running and fleeing and going back into the rat holes that they came out of. But this isn't like all of those times. This is different. And when Yvette went to the rally in Sacramento, I think it's fair to say that she didn't expect that rally to be anything like it was. She didn't expect that she was going to be stabbed in the arm and bludgeoned in the head at that rally. She didn't expect she was going to be one of the recipients of that kind of brute violence because she didn't think anyone was going to be the recipient of that kind of brute violence. Well, there are two issues that define America now. One of them is the political campaign. The other is race and police brutality and the racist killing by the police of young Black and Latino citizens and members of the society. We think anybody who comes here who works, whatever their papers might say, they are Americans. They have the right to be here. They have the right to call this home. They have the right to have any privileges that are afforded anyone who was born here. But that issue of what the police are going to be allowed to do is obviously in the headlines all the time, every day. And it's not a coincidence that every single police organization in America backs Donald Trump. And if you ask yourself why it is that the people who stabbed Yvette have not been arrested, there were a lot of police there. There were a lot of people taking videos there. No one can claim that the identities of the people who were stabbing people, and 5 anti-Nazi protesters ended up wounded and in the hospital. There's no doubt that their identities are known. And there is also no doubt that none of them have been arrested. Nobody has been brought up on charges. Yeah.
Has there been any investigations in that direction?
They claim that the Highway Patrol, right after Sacramento, they said that there was investigations that were going on and they were reviewing tapes and all that, and nothing has come of that. And it's just so telling.
Yeah.
Because if it had been the other way around, you can
Yeah.
bet there'd be a whole lot of people right now who would be in jail, who would be, facing charges. it's really symptomatic of the moment that we're at. Well, the response of the Berkeley School District to what happened to Yvette is captured on page 3 of the bundle that looks like this. And I just want to read the first paragraph and then the fourth paragraph of this public statement that was issued by the school district after the Sacramento rally. It says, on Sunday, June 26th, there was a political protest in Sacramento that became violent. And we subsequently learned that one of the people involved in the situation is a teacher at King Middle School. Since then, we have received multiple communications expressing concern about this incident, including an anonymous email that threatened that if the teacher in question were not fired within the week, the letter writer would come to King with the intent to harm our students. Even though school is not in session, it is important for the community to know about the situation and know our response to the appalling threat made to the safety of children. And okay, it's clear that it's the fascists who are sending these letters, demanding blood and demanding that Yvette lose her job. But then you go down and in the next couple of paragraphs, they talk about how they've talked to the FBI and the FBI isn't taking the threats that seriously and other measures and actions that they're taking. And then in the fourth paragraph, they say, we have also been fielding messages asking whether the teacher in question will be fired for her political activity. When they say they've also been fielding questions, they mean by some other source. They don't mean by the fascists. They mean people in Berkeley, some section of people in Berkeley who are demanding blood as well. And they say, as a public school district, we must comply with the US and California constitutions and follow relevant state law and the provisions of the collective bargaining agreement related to employment. Although there are protections for our employees, we also want to be clear that they must comply with board policies with respect to the classroom discussions of controversial topics. We cannot comment further on the specifics of the personnel matter, as employee disciplinary matters are confidential. That paragraph says to the fascists that were sending the emails, says to the local community people that believe that nothing should have happened at that rally in Sacramento, and we agree nothing should have happened to Yvette. It's saying to all of those people, we're going after Yvette. We're prepared to victimize her. Now, the next day, they'll send out a packet of crap, which we'll read one part of in a second, that is this massive discipline, 340 pages of just garbage that they're sending to Yvette to discipline her. And they send her another letter that says, we're going to take from your pay money that we paid you over the last 2 or 3 years for personal days that you took in which you went to political rallies. And now we've identified those days and we've done this investigation, and there are days that you called in sick or you called in about matters with your family. All of those were approved by the principal, and we just wanted to give people just a little bit. These are the slips that Yvette had to fill out, and she's got every single one of them approved by the principal for every one of those days that they took pay back. Okay, it is blatantly illegal in the state of California to reach back into somebody's paycheck and take money back that quite honestly, if that were something that employers could do, well, there would probably be a lot of riots in the state of California, because if you have a failing business and you decide, oh, I can't pay the mortgage, this month, so I think I'll go in and take my employee's paycheck, there'd be all kinds of hell to pay, and so that's something that can't happen. And again, there's a piece of paper in the packet that shows that Yvette's, this is from Yvette's bank account, that there was money.
It's in reverse chronological order.
So there's money that's deposited on the 30th,
And then if you go further up, it says reversal, Berkeley Unified's reversal, Felarca, on the next day, on the 31st.
now,
So they deposited on the 30th, and then it's in reverse chronological order. The next day they took it out
Yvette,
of my bank.
being like a lot of people, saw that the money was in her account and proceeded to start spending it. Now, only to find that that money had been taken back, and that anything she charged or anything that she, signed up to buy, she wasn't going to be able to pay for. And it's a shocking thing to do. One, to go back and claim that you can take money from somebody for days that you approve them being off, and that they have the contractual guarantee to be able to take off. But to do that all in one fell swoop, to take somebody's whole paycheck, I mean, that is really
In Berkeley,
provocative.
California, that's the thing. I moved here for crying out loud. My husband earned his degree here. My daughter moved here and worked here. If they were alive now, they would just flip.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's really outrageous. And the main thing I've thought about, apart from, thinking about the political reasons for this attack and how much this is a political witch hunt, is being a lawyer, what we could do legally around this. And I do think we're gonna get this money back. Honestly, I think that if we can get this many people to the next school board meeting raising hell, if we can get people to take the petition we have for Yvette to get her reinstated, if we can get meetings set up, if we can continue to meet as a group that sees our job as getting Yvette back her job, and we can figure out how to organize to do that in the most effective way, so that if we can have regular meetings, weekly meetings to figure out what is the next step that needs to be taken, I really believe we can win. And on just the legal front, we have a really strong case, but that doesn't mean all that much under the current political climate. And it's a situation in which anybody who practices law, especially as I do in immigration courts, will know that there is a level of lawlessness, of blatant disregard for the law that takes place every day, and that is, takes months to reverse if you go to court, and takes far more money than anyone could afford. We do those cases for free because the people can't afford to pay. But that means that, that we're always at the disadvantage of having to come up with money that to be able to represent the people that we are attempting to represent. Okay, I'm sorry, I just want to do two more things on the first set of discipline. I said that it was 340 pages of charges, and I just wanted to emphasize one of the points, which is point 34, because I think it describes and sums up the character of the charges. So it's the last page in your packet that